Boker Tov, good morning. Today is Friday, July 22nd, Erev Shabbat, Parshat Pinchas. We've been talking throughout the week about Tzlaf Chad. If you listen to the Daily Dose of Torah, we've been trying to unpack a lot about him. And here I just want to pull us back to the actual discussion that exists around the man, which is what the daughters of Tzlaf Chad bring forward. They say the following to Moshe, who has been talking about, initiating the first conversation around Nachalat Haaretz, the inheritance of land and the division of land in Israel, which is very much framed around inheritance that goes from father to son. And they say, Avinu Beit Mamidbar, our father died in the wilderness, he had no sons. Skip right to it, who had no son, and therefore, Lama Yigara, why should our father's name be lost from amongst his family? Because he won't inherit. Give us the inheritance amongst his family. That's the summary of what they say. As Rav Elchanan Samet makes clear in a very fine article on the topic, there are really two ways in which it was understood that a man might have continuum. It would be either through having sons. There's continuum, a sense of some type of hemshech, of ongoing living through him, through sons. And the other was through the family land that would continue through the generations, being inherited from one generation to the next. And they say, look, it's not working out. Our father doesn't have either to have his continuum. As the Tanchuma, the Midrash Tanchuma frames it, that's really, he builds around this Tanchuma. The Midrash calls them very smart, which isn't just about, good lawyerly case that they make. It gets the crux of the matter. So, as Moshe was speaking about the rules of the division of land, Amrulo, they said to Moshe, In Kevein Anu, Nirash Kevein. Look, if we're the equivalent of a son, then we should inherit. The imlav, and if we're not the equivalent of a son, then tichabeini menu. Let there be a levirate marriage, so our mother can have a son. Because levirate marriage, yibum, only went into effect when when a man dies childless. If he has a daughter, there's no yibum. But in effect, you still don't create this continuum of our father culturally, societally. It just didn't happen. So let's make it happen one way or another. Either let us have an inheritance, and as he would read it, so that our father would be able to continue that way, to have his continuum, or let our mother have the chance to have a son. And miyad vayikrev Moshe mispatan, immediately Moshe brought their case before God. And what does God decide? Kain v'not tzlaf chad dov wrote. God says they're right. And if a man dies without sons, God says, here we go, a very progressive position within the otherwise very clearly patriarchal world, that if a man dies without sons, then his daughters would inherit him. And so there's a great court success, this celebration that happens. But the celebration seems short-lived because a few chapters later, right? Think about this, right? Just put in your own mind other cases where when you win a court case or you win a Supreme Court case, hasn't been, for most of us that hasn't felt like that it happened recently. And so you're out there celebrating, but before you know it, you should know there are people tumbling. There are people already getting in line. Not sinister people, sometimes sinister people. But in this case, it's the other side of the issue. And not people who are angry, but it's the law of unintended consequences. Here it's real. I understand. You went to fix a problem through this remedy, and for the sake of justice for the daughters and for their father's name, and you've instituted that daughters would inherit. But we have a tribal concern, say the families of Yosef. This is Menashe, but this is our concern. That all right, but since we still have the principle of sons inheriting, so this woman would marry, let's say, a person from another tribe, and then sons would inherit her, and the sons are members of the father's tribe, so suddenly you'll have pockets within our tribe of people from other tribes who have land. The land really doesn't remain in the tribe of the family of Yosef, the tribe of Yosef. So you solved for the individual's concern, but you've now created a problem for our whole tribe. That's not selfish, and it's not evil. It's just that in creating this remedy, you've at the same time created this new problem. And so God says, okay, you're right too. And so the rule will be that the way we'll solve for that is to limit the daughters of Tzlafchad. They'll inherit, but their marriage pool will only be 1/12 of Israel, specifically their father's tribe. They have to marry within the tribe. And they end up they marry their cousins, the Torah says. Latov Anihem, they have the right to choose whoever is good in their eyes. It's also great framing, that we wouldn't necessarily imagine, Latov Anihem. So they can choose, but it has to be with the family, within the tribe. In this case, they marry their cousins. So, okay, so that's how things work in a healthy society. In a healthy society, which is that law is there to solve for problems in society, and new laws arise when new problems exist. And create the remedy, and then in a healthy society, you recognize that the remedy might cause unintended consequences, and then you try to solve for those. You don't go blow things up in either direction. You approach it as best you can by keeping the principles in place, create exceptions, and then perhaps create some restrictions, and that's how you make living law happen. That's the healthy system. We live in a time when law doesn't seem to work that way anymore. Right? Law is not there to solve for problems often, or even to represent principles, earnest principles and values. They're often there, as you kind of know, and there's no chiddush. They're there to protect interests or advance interests, and interests of the lawmakers, not of the society. And or those who have the greatest influence over the lawmakers. This is no chiddush on my part. I'm not telling you anything new or tales out of school. And if we look to the model of the Torah, it really does give us the ideal, because no law is perfect. No law is perfect, and we do our best to help deal with the perimeter issues and problems that are raised by it, and then the second level and the third. The last thing I'll tell you is this: Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, which we got to get to. First, we got to move through Tisha B'Av. On the other side of it, we're told one of the things that it celebrates is the fact that on that date, the 15th of Av, the tribes were permitted to marry one another, and it's understood to mean this: that daughters who inherit were no longer limited to their tribes. That's probably because of some of the breakdown in tribal control over territories anyway. At some point, we don't exactly know when that kind of was given up, because by the time you're in the Second Temple, there's no tribal distinction of lands that are happening. Of course, the 10 northern tribes have been exiled, so maybe it was kind of that point. But you have a sense that it hasn't been really protected sufficiently even before then. But what you have ultimately, though, is a statement that was also a thing of celebration, because just the notion that we had to put in this fix, that was hard. That really did restrain, and for whatever reason, it came to be that it was that the change could come about. The purer goal of solving for the individual's needs seems to have dominated and won out. And I don't know what to do with that part either, but there's something that's even celebrated there about the living values of all of law in their best form, celebrated on Tu B'Av. May we merit to live in a society and help build a society where laws are at their best, and do our part to help ensure that can be. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.